Alright, here we go. Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz Comic Corner Classic. Let's do classics. This episode number 3281, Doubleshot 3175. We have two more IDW library collections. One from Star Trek, the other from Godzilla. Both are also the last ones I can find on the Libby app. The Godzilla one we'll just put on there. This one basically I find quite interesting. We have Star Trek The Library Collection, IDW Library Collection Volume 3. This collects Star Trek Year 4, The Enterprise Experiment, Alien Spotlight, Vulcans, and Alien Spotlight, The Gorn. The Gorn is a very interesting one. It does not focus on the series crew. Believe it or not, this whole story for this one focuses on the Reliant, the spaceship from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, this of course set before that movie, have an encounter with the Gorn. Vulcans mostly puts that with Vulcans. But, by the way, the Gorn one-shot is done by Scott and David Tipton. The artwork by David C. Now, the thing is, Aliens by Vulcans. This is done by Rick Remender, as in the writer of such books as All New Captain America. Yeah, the guy who basically made Sam Wilson Captain America. Yes, this will serve as a loose inspiration for the Captain America Brave the World movie. So, something that, this happened very recently. No, this happened over a decade ago. It didn't last very long because some people in Marvel Comics thought it would be a bad idea to have two Captain Americas, despite the fact there's two Spider-Man and two Hawkeyes. The Enterprise Experiment was done by... This is a shocker. So, it is written by D.C. Fontana and Derek Chester. Writing, artwork is done by Gordon Pritchell. Now, some of you thinking, D.C. Fontana... That name seems familiar. Didn't she write some Star Trek? She did. She wrote, one of the most famous episodes she wrote was During the Babel, which basically expanded upon the Federation aliens. It was this episode where you get introduced the Tellarites, the Andorians. I believe this was the episode they introduced Ambassador Sarek. One of her last known writing credits that she ever did was she did work on the pilot episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Yeah, by the way, she passed away about 6 years ago at the age of 80. Yeah. Yeah, so for comics-wise, I think this may be one of her very few comics she ever wrote. I think so, yes, because... Oh yeah, she wrote the Enterprise, which I think was basically so it's sequel to Year 4. But I think this may have been the only comic book she ever... Let's see, I'm looking at her... So, I think this may have been her only comic book she wrote. Apparently, she did write a novel. Yes. She did write the book Vulcan's Glory, which basically is a prequel story focusing on Captain Pike and Spock. And she did write the... Now, basically, for The Next Generation, she wrote 5 episodes. So, for writing-wise, for the original series, she basically wrote During the Babel, which, yes, is the introduction of the Andorians and Tellarites, and Sarek and Amanda. I think it's Jack the movie. They also wrote the episode Friday's Child, which is introduced the character of... Well, this episode is basically introduced the character of Leonard James Ackner, who has been a big character in the Star Trek novels. Yes, a very tall individual who, prior to the relaunch of the Star Trek novels, thanks to Picard, he was in fact the chief executive officer. He was the commander-in-chief of Starfleet. That was basically his job. So the first episode, basically, that kind of in a way was one of the first stories she ever wrote for the series, was the episode Charlie X. This was kind of in a way the second episode of the series. She also wrote Tomorrow is Yesterday. This is the episode where they went back in time to the 60s. One of two times they did it. The Side of Paradise. Yep. Journey to Babel. Fire Shout. The Ultimate Computer, which, yeah, that's a loose reference here. Apparently she was also one of the people who basically rewrote Harlan Ellison's City on the Edge of Forever, which it's an excellent episode. One of the versions of the story did end up being into a comic book. Yes, she did the Enterprise, which basically the comic itself is this comic, The Enterprise Experiments, is a sequel to that which survives. This was basically one of the Invisible Planet. The Way to Eden. This is a weird one where let's hijack by hippies. And there was many different things with this one. I also heard a story with this one where apparently originally part of the hippies was supposed to be Doc McCoy's daughter, who actually does appear in one of these stories. I think she appears in Enterprise Innocence, where she is basically, she's in the story. Her name is Jolene. That's basically Doc McCoy's daughter's name. Where she's also featured in the novels too, where she, like her father, became a doctor. And he, of course, is very supportive of this. Apparently also his ex-wife too. And yes, the thing is, she basically had no problem with him remaining in space, because it was something he needed to do. And they mention it here in the story, which gotta give praise for DC Fontana for writing that. Yeah. Now, for Next Generation, of course, she of course wrote the opening episode. Yeah, she wrote the pilot episode, and she also wrote, under a pseudonym, she wrote the third episode, the one that's with Naked Time, the one where, let's basically do a snow thing where someone takes a shower fully clothed. Yeah, she wrote some novels. She did write an episode for Deep Space Nine, the episode Dax. A very good episode from the series, episode I really enjoyed. She wrote an episode Babylon 5. She basically co-wrote scripts for Star Trek Legacy game, so Legacy and Tactical Assault. She wrote an episode for Star Trek New Voyages, which had been cut off due to the bullcrap, basically legal stuff related between Fan Productions and Paramount. Yeah. So overall, she wrote 4 novels, one of the Star Trek book, and she did, now, somebody might be curious, did she ever write an episode for Voyager? Nope. Oh, get this. She wrote an episode for Beast Wars. Yes, Beast Wars Transformers. She wrote an episode for this series. You're thinking, what episode she wrote for this one? Heck, they have Marv Wolping ran an episode for this one. So, did she write an episode for Season 1? She wrote an episode for Season 3 of the show. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, so she wrote episode 48 of the series, Crossing the Rubicon. She wrote that episode. Which I had to bring this up because, well, she's an amazing writer. So, a lot of the story itself basically felt like it was a lot of sequel stuff to... Now, I've already reviewed Year 4 already, so that's why I'm going to talk about The Empire Thing, which is a great miniseries. So, the opening story itself, basically, like I mentioned, it's a sequel to Enterprise Incident, where the cloaking device they stole in that episode, which the commander from that story does return for this one, and apparently the cloaking made it phase, which, that's interesting. I wonder if DC Fontana remembers the classic Next Generation episode, The Pegasus. Yes. Which was an attempt to further correct their own cloaking device, which, yeah, all about going out of phase. Eventually, by the end, I think it was the second issue, they did eventually get out of phase. Yeah, they only last for a couple issues. I like the fact that I'm a commander. I do appreciate, though, the artist did an excellent job recreating the actress who basically played her on the show, which, by the way, this character is never given a name. You're like, really? Why is that? I honestly do not know the reason why they actually decided never to give the character a name. Okay, the actress who played her, who is since passed away, as of about 4 years ago, actually. She was played by Joanne Linville, who did an excellent job. Yeah. Which, you gotta praise her for that. The fact that she did an amazing job playing this character. Like, her whole purpose in the episode was basically, during the course of this episode, she was trying to seduce Spock. Spock seemed like he was about to be into it, and eventually he would just be there to be a distraction. While Kirk was surgically altered to be a Romulan. Yes, seriously. Which, of course, Scotty laughed at this in the episode. And he says, "Captain, you're bloody beautiful." Yes. Seriously, he said that in the episode. James Doohan said that in the episode. When Kirk transported over to the Romulan ship, which they also used Klingon birds of prey, which, if you watch a story, you're like, wait, why in the world are the Romulans using the same ships as the Klingons? The reason? Money. Yes, behind the scenes where I heard they actually have money to create new ships, so they kind of explained that apparently the Romulans bought these ships from the Klingons, which is weird. Given the fact these two species do not like each other at all. And plus, I love how the artist recreates the bird of prey from the show. Because the thing is, when people think of the birds of prey for the Romulans, a lot of the time people think of the version that popped up on Next Generation. And people think, oh, was that the version that popped up on the original series? No, it looked like this. That was a bird of prey. A ship that only popped up twice the entire show. The first time the Romulans ever appeared in Star Trek was in the classic original series episode Balance of Terror, which, yes, the actor who later played Spock's father appeared as the Romulan commander. Yes, and for some weird reason, her first officer is drawn to be similar to Kirk for some reason, even though it clearly is not Kirk. So, eventually, of course, they get the ship back in shape, no problem. And they disable it, and they get away, and they go to, of all places, K-12. Now, that's interesting, given the fact, they'll mention here, because this is the same space station that was the basis for the story, Trouble with the Tribbles, which was revisited for a Deep Space Nine episode. Yes, seriously. So they remove it, and then we have Commander Core, a character who appeared in one episode of the series but also returned for 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine. Warrior's Oath, Sword of Kahless, and I think there was an episode during season 7, I think it was, where the character finally was killed off. And I think it was one of the producers suggested, because I think I heard they originally were going to plan to recast these characters, but someone came with the genius idea, and this was a smart idea. Bring in the original actors! They're clearly still alive at this point, even though by the time the episode came out it was the 1990s, and they're much older, but you can play into that. And it turned out 3 really good episodes. And Cora's like, I really want to fight Kirk. And something happened with the Organians, which also, this is a follow-up not only to Amateur Mercy, but also a loose follow-up to another episode from the classic series. Yeah, I remember there was an episode from the series that involved a species known as the Preservers. I'm trying to remember what season that was in. Let's see if I can find it here. There we go. So, yeah, they actually had a similar thing pop up here, which for some reason I'm not sure why this is. They had it where somehow that okay, so the episode they appeared in was the Paradise Syndrome. Was an episode from season 3. Which you could say, yes, this comic has loose follow-up to that one too. So, 2 episodes, Aaron and Mercy, and the Paradise Syndrome. Which, by the way, this is written by Margaret Ammon. Yeah. So, something is weird happened with the Klingons. Like they're able to attack Federation outposts because they focus on the Romulans. Something happened with the Organians that's not really fully explained here. And, oh yeah, and Kirk in the story, he wears this green outfit, which, there's actually a behind-the-scenes reason why Kirk wore this green thing. It was actually to poke fun of the fact that William Shatner was putting on weight in the show. Yep, that was literally the whole reason why. And there's a reference here to Carol Marcus, yeah, this is, of course, this is set during the 4th year, like year 4, kind of, probably just afterwards. And there's a reference, oh yeah, stay away. Yeah, I think DC Fantasia you probably have the core throw this in because probably happened this period of time. Kirk basically with her in Wrath the Khan, which she wasn't appeared again. So they want to fight, and something has happened with the Organians. And you read this book, yeah, it feels like a sequel to Year 4 because that was really the whole purpose of this miniseries. Be a sequel to Year 4, and at one point in this book, to infiltrate the Klingons, because apparently they're trying to access the Preserver technology. So, I guess to play off the Enterprise incident where Kirk was surgically altered to be a Romulan, let's surgically alter Sulu to be a freaking Klingon! Yes, seriously. And this also is the issue 4, I think it is. This is where he first introduced to Jolene McCoy, the daughter of Dr. McCoy, who was very proud of his daughter. Yes, she became a healer. Like, the thing is, there's no mention of him coercing her into becoming a doctor. This is something she decided on her own, and her father is very happy with her that she made this decision. The fact that in one of the books, they actually worked together to actually help some patients. Yes. Yeah, and they have a captured Romulan, which this was really interesting. I think this is from the previous issue, which is so interesting. You even have basically a Romulan having, get this, alcohol with a Starfleet Commodore. Now there's me thinking, a Commodore? What about the Admirals? The original series never conceived Admirals until, like, the movies. So, yeah, which, I love all the references here. This miniseries is fantastic. I love this book. Which, by the way, the whole thing with the Berserkers and the Cleons, this will actually last for 3 straight issues of this miniseries. And eventually the Organians are basically involved. Also, you probably notice, wait, who is that alien and where is Chekhov? Well, there is sort of a behind-the-scenes reason why that this character was created. Because of the Star Trek animated series. You're thinking, wait, what? The animated series? Yes, believe it or not, Star Trek had an animated series back in the 1970s, before we had shows like Star Trek Prodigy and Star Trek Lower Decks. Which, of course, they did experiments with that with, of course, the episode Voyager. And I like the fact this character is utilized here. And then for some weird reason they threw in the Ramen Commander again, because why not? So the Vulcans issue, this is a weird one. This is set during the era of Pike. Where it's just basically just a classic original series stories in that period of time. I'd say, given the fact some of the characters are from the original pilot are here, this could be either set either before or after The Cage. Presumably. But that's pretty much this book in a nutshell. This book is just pure awesome at its finest. I love this book. Yeah. Give it a 10 out of 10. Really good. Next up we have is Godzilla IDW Library Collection, which collects the Godzilla what is the name of the miniseries? Rulers of Earth. Yep. Where Godzilla goes on a rampage. And this also is the book we bring in frickin' Zilla from the 1998 Godzilla movie. Yeah, he's here. It's like this book is basically a love letter to the Heisei era movies, along with a little bit of the Millennium, because we see Megaguirus, you know, the second monster of the Millennium movies. We see Biollante. We see Heisei or Mechagodzilla, even his replacement from, I think, was the Hollywood Academy making that Godzilla 2, which really cool threw that in here. Surprisingly, King Ghidorah is not thrown in here. Surprisingly, probably because he was killed in the previous miniseries. Heck, at one point in this book, they throw in Jet Jaguar, which I've heard the whole purpose of the creation of this character was because of Ultraman. Yep, that was the whole purpose of Jet Jaguar. Because people love Ultraman. And somebody totally is like, hey, can we have an Ultraman for the movie? It's like, no, can't use the name of the character, but can we have someone similar? So, let's create Jet Jaguar. Yeah, he's in the book. Yeah, another really good Godzilla book. 10 out of 10. Yep, so yeah, that's the particular view. Please be sure to like and subscribe to notifications. Next up, the last episodes, the beginning, after the end. Okay, next view. Bye.